All right. Thank you all. We have an exciting session. These are three entrepreneurs who have developed technologies that are transformative in delivering medicines. They're unique and I think very important. And the hard thing is you have an industry that is hundreds of years old. How do we get them to change how they think? So I want to introduce them, have them give a minute or two of what they do, and then we're going to have that discussion to try to say, how do we change that playing field? Because we'll decide it today, and it will happen tomorrow. We have Kirk Graves, who is the CEO of Intarsia Therapeutics, Behshad Sheldon, the CEO of Brainstorm Pharmaceuticals, and Andrew Thompson, who is the CEO of Proteus Digital Health. I've known Andrew for many years. The two of you I've met today, and we're very excited to hear what you say. So let's give an introduction in just a minute or two of what the technology is that you're doing.
Our technology at Intarsia Therapeutics, for those of you who saw the demo yesterday, it's basically a convergence of two technologies in medicine. So we innovate both on the medicine side as well as two technologies. One technology we have, which is the fundamental one, stabilizes proteins, peptides, antibody fragments at body temperatures for 3+ years. We had to figure that out from a chemistry point of view, because if you can't keep drugs stable at high temperatures for long periods of time, you can't really fulfill a vision we have, which is to open up a new way of delivering medicines just once or twice a year. The second technology that I demoed yesterday is this little tiny osmotic mini pump. This holds a year's worth of medicine inside it and the stability technology. And between the medicine, the stability technology, and this mini pump, we're opening up a totally new category of medicines for the biggest chronic diseases in the world. And we're planning to use this to both treat the diseases better over time, as well as prevent some of these major diseases like HIV, like diabetes, and others.
So what are you calling this new class of therapeutics? Is there a general name?
Well, we give our platform the name Medici because we believe it's a renaissance in the delivery of chronic medicines.
Good, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, and what's next?
Hi, I'm Behshad Sheldon. I joined up with Apple Tree Partners about 4.5 years ago to start Brainstorm Pharmaceuticals with the vision of bringing, we call them implantables, and long-acting injectables as a new way of delivering medicine in CNS, neurology, psychiatric disorders that have a lot of stigma associated with them, and where adherence to medicine isn't just a nice to have. It's really essential because of the serious and quick consequences of not taking your medicine as prescribed. So, for example, in schizophrenia, if someone doesn't take their medicine because they think that they're well, then they'll very quickly relapse, end up on the street, end up in prison. In the case of opioid use disorder, which is a current epidemic that we're facing as a nation, if someone stops taking their medicine on a Thursday, they can literally overdose and die on a Saturday. So it's really crucial to have medicines that guarantee it being on board and delivering the medicine that they're supposed to be getting. And our first product is Probufene. It was approved last year. Yeah, it's smaller, but we have 4 of them. And it lasts only for 6 months, so not quite as cool. I'm a big fan of Intarsia. I think this is the wave of the future, and we're at the front of the wave, but I really hope that there'll be many, many more such innovations in the future.
That's great. Andy?
Great. So Proteus Digital Health, we make medicines that when you swallow them, talk to your cell phone. And we answer the 2 most fundamental questions in all of oral therapy. Did the patient take the drug? And if they did it work? So pretty fundamental. This is not an experimental technology. We've been in business for about 12 years. We've invested over $500 million. We've created new categories of medical device in the United States and in Europe and in China. We've created new pathways for the approval of a digital medicine that contains active silicon, and we expect the first of those drugs to be approved this year. So the idea here is that we now redimension what an ambulatory therapeutic product really is, and we give consumers things that really improve their ability to make good choices. So measurement, feedback, and behavioral cues. And most importantly, we give them that information on their mobile. And I'll just talk about the merger of Time and AT&T. Randy Stevenson made the point that the reason why AT&T is buying Time is because consumers want premium content on their mobile devices. Nothing could be more premium than direct information, specific information about how your drugs are working for you, how they're working for your parents, or how they're working for your kids. So we see this as a really fundamental and important opportunity to really redimension the pharmaceutical industry.
That's great. So, I mean, obviously there are a lot of things to talk about. So the first let's talk about is regulatory. The US FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, are they primed to handle what you're doing? I mean, are they receptive? Or is this so new that they just don't even know how to deal with it?
There's definitely receptivity, but they're going to have to bring different groups together. So for example, our product goes through kind of the psychopharm division. They're not very acquainted with procedures, so they had to ask a whole other division of OBGYN and urology to come in and advise on the procedure part of it. So in a way, you have to get kind of two sets of things approved, both the product itself and the procedure.
Same here for me. It's we're being regulated as a drug, so it's ultimately being regulated as a drug, but we have to deal with the normal diabetes division that reviews drugs for our first therapy that's under active review right now, so I'm right in the middle of one. And you have the device experts within the FDA that are brought in as consultants in that whole process, but it's definitely a more complex review than a straightforward pill or injection, yes.
And you the same?
Yeah, so look, we would regard the regulatory agencies as our first customer, and it's very clear that these types of combination products require different approaches and the creation of a whole new body of expertise. And as far as we're concerned, part of our job as an innovative company is to help the agency build that expertise and to be very realistic, quite frankly, about the incentives that individual reviewers face when they're dealing with what are precedent-setting products. And so, you can imagine, for example, a headline when drugs are approved that says FDA approves drugs that spy on patients, right? That's not a good thing, and people wouldn't like that. So we have to do a lot of work to get people comfortable. If we do that work, then we think over time that will become a much smoother pathway.
So the first one's the hardest.
Absolutely, yes.
And what about payers? Payers like to, pay by the month, by the week. I mean, you're asking them to put a lot up front. You're asking them to put a premium on an existing, potentially generic drug. Mm-hmm. How do payers, how do you show the value proposition of what you're doing? Is that part of your process? Do you have economists looking at this?
It's absolutely part of the process. We take the clinical data and then translate it into what it would mean in terms of events that drive other kinds of costs. So in the case of opioid use disorder, every time somebody relapses, they end up in rehab. That could be $30,000, $40,000. If there's an overdose situation, that's obviously adding to a lot of costs. If there's acquisition of HIV or hepatitis C. So all those go into a model, and the thought leaders in the insurance business understand that. They understand that treating patients better will get them, in the end, savings. But it's not necessarily a slam dunk. It's definitely a process.
Yeah, speaking about what we're doing, we're only focused on major chronic diseases: diabetes, obesity, autoimmune disorders, prevention of HIV, et cetera.
A couple big ones there.
A few big ones there. And the value proposition when you can walk in the door with a medicine that's safe and effective, but where you can give the product once or twice a year and essentially ensure that compliance and adherence and therefore efficacy over time is going to be delivered, is huge. Just think about diabetes for a second. It's the #1 cost burden any government and any payer in the U.S. faces right now. It's #1 across the charts. Right. So if you can walk into them, here's the 10-year trends in diabetes. Over the last 10 years, we've never had more than 30 to 40% of people controlled. We've never had more than 20 to 30% of people stay on their medicine for a full year. And the costs are going through the roof right now. So when you walk in and you can show them a medicine that can be delivered once or twice a year like this, after they see the data, literally the question is, just don't gouge me on price with it, because the value proposition is clear. If I can have something where I don't have to worry about trying to change patient behavior anymore, and I can actually get 100% of what I'm paying for, they totally get it, as long as you don't gouge them on price. I mean, the funny thing is, over the last 10 years, we've had this terrible control trends, and there's been 43 pills and injections for type 2 diabetes approved in the same 10-year period of time. We don't need to run the experiment again. What's another pill or injection going to do? We need these new technologies for chronic diseases, and they get it.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said here. Of course, economics is part of what we build into the service offering we bring to our customers. Let me just comment that drug pricing is not the problem. By far, the most cost-effective way of treating chronic conditions is with medical therapy. The problem is that we're asking payers to purchase drugs that are prescribed that are mainly not taken or not taken properly. So we spend an enormous amount of money on things that don't deliver the value that they're supposed to create. And so we have not an efficacy gap, which is the theoretical benefit of the drug, we have an effectiveness gap. Right. And what all three of us are talking about on this stage is the idea that you can make the things that we've already created much more effective if you ensure that they're appropriately used on a day-to-day basis. And the real costs that we experience in healthcare, the 80% of the current budget that we spend on managing chronic conditions is not on the drugs, it's on all of the sequelae that result from people not taking those drugs, like heart attacks and strokes.
And no, I love that. I mean, obviously, there have been some large studies recently showing that online and other compliance means didn't work. Mm-hmm. And you guys have, literally are changing that playing field in a positive way. What's interesting is that you've got the biopharmaceutical industry spending tens of billions of dollars developing new drugs. And again, they're that same modality is take a pill a day, we hope you take it, and we hope the data are good if you take it, et cetera. If I were one of them, I'd be at your door for clinical trials. I'd be at your door to use these, because the more compliance in today's world of value-based care we're going to get, the better. Are you getting that kind of reception? Are the pharmaceutical companies just knocking at your door saying, I want to partner, I want to be your friend?
I'll say two things, at least in my experience. Certainly, we've had many, many discussions with pharma companies, but we really believe we're doing something new that doesn't look like the pill or injection model at all. I don't think this fits into the pill injection model that pharma companies are used to. I think when you talk about real innovation, you have to find people that are comfortable when there's no analog. Because when there's no analog, it really means you are innovating, right? Analogs are about similarity. But a lot of people struggle to move if there's not an analog, and there's no analog for what we're doing, right? It's clear. So we realized a long time ago, based on how pharma companies were looking at us, that we were going to have to do this on our own and walk before we run and really build the technology out. I don't expect any pharma company to come in until we really show that we've opened up this new way of delivering chronic medicines.
Do you guys agree?
I think there's at least a couple of big pharma companies that are looking at technologies to deliver long-term guaranteed adherence, but I agree that they're going to wait to see if one of us makes it first. Are we going to make a big hit, and then they'll follow?
And it'll be a different story.
Are they your friend, Andy?
Eventually they will be, but look, the major pharmaceutical
it's a theme.
The major pharmaceutical companies are investing tens of billions of dollars a year in research that's based on chemistry and biology. And look, historically, chemistry and biology has been very successful for these companies. What we're doing, and to some extent what my colleagues here are doing, is to make use of physics. And these are not disciplines that are well understood inside traditional pharmaceutical companies. But in case anyone hasn't noticed, silicon and software are eating the world. And the idea that you can take the world's most important library in medicine, drugs, and start to combine it with new solutions that are based on silicon and software is an enormously important idea. Now, our strategy, a little bit like yours, I think, is we are going to show the world what drugs with digital drivetrains look like, just like Tesla is showing the world what cars with batteries look like. Now, the valuation of Tesla has nothing to do with their ability to sell cars and everything to do with the idea that every car company in the world eventually is going to want to get batteries from Tesla. And that is exactly what will happen for our company.
I like that analogy. Well, let me push you a little. Is that there are drugs that have failed in terms of long-term efficacy, things like testosterone, right? Mm-hmm. Goes up in the morning, goes down, goes up again, et cetera. Partly because how we give it. Yeah. Will these be controllable one day and be personalized so there's some feedback loop? It should go up, it should go down, and where I can actually have some more homeostasis on the drugs with these technologies?
That's, as you probably know, a complicated question, because every medicine, there are characteristics of medicines and how they should be delivered. If you're delivering a drug for osteoporosis, you want a very rapid rise in the PK and a very rapid decline. For a GLP-1, you actually want exactly what we have, which we call zero-order delivery, completely smooth delivery of the medicine. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. We're working on next-generation versions of this that have different delivery characteristics.
And will they have feedback loops? So they'll have a sensor and a response?
Some will definitely have that in the future.
Future means next week, next month?
Years.
Years.
Few years.
Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think what is most important in most CNS disorders is that you have a steady blood level and the same kind of zero-order releases, but there might be other therapeutic areas and other medicines that need a different PK profile, and then you definitely would need some sort of feedback loop. For now, I think we're focused on CNS and on areas and molecules that we know you do best as a patient if you have a very steady blood
Well, you
level.
say that, but we've never had the opportunity to have some feedback loop built in. We've either had to have once a day or twice a day dosing or continuous. That's all we've had.
Yeah, and to a large extent, we learn from patients and what they do. So whether it's with buprenorphine for opioid addiction or tizanidine for spasticity, patients will divide their doses up into as many pieces as they can because they're trying to mimic that steady blood level. And we know for a lot of psychiatric drugs, the peaks are actually what give you the side effects. And if you get too low on blood levels, then you start to lose efficacy. So kind of a steady mid-level is what works really well. Do we have the exact specific kind of data that you're talking about? No, but we've learned in a lot of places from what patients have done.
Andrew, you're obviously a little bit different boat in that you also have a lot of behavioral psychology in what you do. Mm-hmm. Looking at, you've been doing this for a while. Mm-hmm. What's the big lessons you've learned? Obviously, no one's perfect when they start.
So I'm going to draw a very big macro point here. People focus a lot in healthcare and in other areas on talking about how to change patient behavior. I'm going to go to mobile banking. If you take a guy who, for example, is a road worker in the United States who doesn't have a bank account, it's likely because what he's being asked to do is to engage with the economy that's about buildings, people, and products. He has to go away from his job, stop earning money, deal with a bunch of complicated paperwork and people who he doesn't really understand, and he's going to choose, okay, I maybe don't want to have a bank account. So he's in the cash economy. If you give that person a mobile banking app, he can then start to deal with that maybe when he's on his lunch break at work. And by the way, what's happening here is not that we're changing that consumer's behavior, we're fundamentally changing the producer's behavior to embrace a new model that's about mobile, software, and service, which is how everybody now wants to run their lives. And what the producer has done there is to task simplify, task segment, and task relocate. Very important. So the big lesson for us at Proteus is the largest group of healthcare workers in the world are not doctors and nurses. It's everybody in this room caring for yourselves, for your parents, and your kids. And we're asking you to do impossible tasks for which you have no training, no feedback, and no rewards. By redesigning those tasks, placing them discreetly inside your life flow and making it easy for you to engage, you can all do a much better job. And so the key here is not to focus on changing the consumer's behavior, it is to focus on changing the production function and the behavior of the producer. And when CEOs of pharma companies say that non-compliance isn't their problem, that's something that patients and physicians need to deal with. They're 100% wrong.
That's great. I mean, obviously the two of you have a different issue in that, you're inserting a foreign body. And so psychologically, how do you get over that? How do you convince a patient or educate a patient of the benefit of doing that in today's world?
I believe the same for any product. This is not the product. This is a means to an end. The benefits are what sell products.
Got it.
So one thing we had to decide when we went down this road was not just showing that it's a more convenient delivery of a drug, right? In fact, I outlawed the word convenience. Right? It's in our company, right?
People are not in the country, just in your company.
Yeah. Just in the company, yes. We can go broader if we want, but in the company. And we're doing head-to-head superiority studies against the most commonly written oral pills for diabetes and injections, because you have to show you have superior benefits. That's what sells products.
I know, that is so bold of you to do. It's awesome.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
And we just keep learning from patients, and what they tell us is that once they have this, it simplifies everything for them in terms of their life. Their worries go away. They're no longer worried about chasing their medicine. I got to get home at 10 o'clock to take it before my cravings come back, or worried about losing it or having it stolen or having a child get a hold of it. Or people in most of our rural communities, they have to drive like 4 hours to get a prescription when they could be doing telemedicine coupled with counseling online and not have to spend that kind of energy just to obtain a prescription for a daily product. So patients and what they're saying is what's going to convince other patients in our world.
Great. Well, listen, thank you, three of you, for what you're doing, how you're innovating, and you're making an enormous difference. And I know there are obstacles, but keep pushing because we all need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.